I do feel like my work with the orchestra, I mean, there's so much playing involved that the role of a soloist is kind of a large part of what I do in the orchestra. Of course, there's a huge collaborative component too in terms of, working with the other woodwind players in the whole orchestra together just to find the way that my part fits into the bigger piece of the puzzle. And actually, as a soloist in front of the orchestra with this Carter Concerto, it's fairly similar. I mean, it's a solo role, of course, but it is a piece of a larger picture. My particular role in the piece. So I think it's more that the balance shifts a little bit more. So whereas when I'm sitting in the orchestra, maybe my solo role is 30% and my collaborative role is 70%, and maybe it's the other way around as a soloist. So they're both sort of capacities that I feel comfortable with, but the relationship changes. When I saw the season schedule for this year and saw that Daphnis was this weekend, the Carter Concerto was next week, my first instinct was, was a little bit just concerned about the sort of close juxtaposition of two really major pieces for me. But now that I'm working on them both at the same time, it's been I think kind of a blessing, because first of all, the solo in Daphnis is something that I know and I've known for so long, and it's just such a part of me as a musician and as a flutist, and so it's sort of comfortable, familiar ground, although it's very demanding and very expressive, and I feel like each time I return to it, I come from a different perspective. But sort of to have that on my music stand next to the Elliott Carter Flute Concerto it's been really very interesting, and I think some of the sort of colors and nuances and shadings that I've always thought about with this Daphnis solo have inspired me to bring a little bit of that into this Carter Concerto also, which is it's really been lovely for me to have those two right next to each other. And as far as preparation, I think it's maybe a little easier for me also to sort of ease from the role of sort of a prominent solo within the orchestra into standing in front of the orchestra, as opposed to if I had been sort of in a less visible role maybe this week within the orchestra and then had to sort of bump up into solo front and center next week. So it's been nice to have that little bit of transition. For the 5.5 years that I've been with the BSO, I've seen Maestro Love work with a lot of soloists, instrumental soloists and singers, and I for me that's been one of the most sort of inspiring parts of working with him, because I feel like Maestro Love has a particular gift for sort of intuitively sensing what the soloist needs at any given moment. He has a way, somehow it's especially obvious to me with singers, but I think with all soloists, he has a way of sort of, without making a big deal of it, very sort of subtly and gracefully kind of accommodating the soloist in a way that I think maybe the soloist isn't even aware of. But from my position sitting in the orchestra, I can see that he's doing that. So I feel very lucky to get to experience that from the other perspective next week. And I anticipate that it's going to be a very sort of easy and sort of mutually sort of supportive collaboration, which I'm really looking forward to. It's easily recognizable as the music of Elliott Carter, and there's a lot of the language in the writing is familiar to me for having played so much of his orchestral repertoire. But I do feel like this piece is unique in the way that he writes, especially for the solo voice, that the flute line very often in the piece is extremely lyrical, and it's just these sweeping, sort of suspended, sort of soaring lines that are very, very lyrical, and I think that's a little bit, I wouldn't say new, but I would say maybe the emphasis on that, the extent to which that's the case in this piece is maybe different from what I've played and experienced in some of his other works. So, from my perspective as the soloist, it's a real treat to sort of sink my teeth into those really beautiful lyrical sections that I think take advantage of the nature of the flute as an instrument and just sort of the more sort of singing vocal kind of quality that the flute can produce. So, I wouldn't say that the piece is a radical departure from what I've, learned of his music of all the pieces that I've played, but it's got its own unique voice. The structure and the orchestration of the piece are really they're clear and they're very transparent, which is, I think, just a wonderful gift to me as a soloist. That the scoring for the orchestra it's very colorful, and there's a lot of sort of texture and variety, but it's not sort of monolithic and sort of vast. It's very sort of almost sheer and I guess colorful is the right word, but there are these really wonderful juxtapositions of sort of very active, virtuosic passages in the orchestra while I'm not doing anything, and then they sort of make way for a really beautiful interlude from the flute, and then it goes back to something very colorful and fantastic in the orchestra. And I think that sort of attention to texture and balance and context is really really wonderful in this piece, and I think it's going to help the audience sort of understand the piece really well, because it's not dense and thick and complex in that way. It's sort of colorful and textural and kind of and sheer. I love it. I think it's wonderful, and I'm really incredibly excited to be playing this piece. I've been studying it for a long time now, and it's very close to my heart, and I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to present this to our audience. And I know that sometimes hearing a brand new piece can seem overwhelming, and I just really want the audience to have a chance to just take in this piece in whatever way works for them. There's beautiful textures and colors and shapes, and it's a just gorgeous piece that I'm really excited to play, and really hope that the audience enjoys it. I know that the orchestra and I are really happy to be playing it for them.